Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, live from Shavitz Arena. I'm Matthew Rocchio. That's Eric Sontag. Oh, there you go. That's Eric Sontag. And this is Billikens Hub postgame live on Sports Hub STL. Senior night from Shavitz Arena, and the Billikens walk away with an unlikely win considering how they played as they beat Duquesne 90-88 in overtime. They seal the fifth seed in the A10 tournament, and we've got plenty to talk about here, but not a lot of time as there's a lot happening in St. Louis sports. So, Eric Sontag, how was your night watching this game?
Man, it was outstanding, and just my reaction to the game is just how bad the turnovers were.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, we had Gibson, Jimerson, and Isaiah Swope, and Duquesne did not. Jimerson, 35 points, career high, 8 rebounds, and Swope just Mr. Clutch on senior night. He had been 0 of 6 from 3 up until those 2 back-to-back threes to go from down 6 to tie the game at 80. He ends with 17 points, 5 boards, and 5 assists. So the 2 seniors coming through, and Gibson Jimerson, I mean, just what can you say? Like, just an incredible way to finish his regular season career. Bill's now the 5 seed in the A10 tournament. I'm sure we'll get to that here in just a little bit, but just love seeing the Billikens and Jimerson in particular go out that way.
Absolutely just ridiculous game. Swope and Avila scored the last 18 points for the Billikens, including the last few in regulation, and then all their points in the overtime period. Just an unbelievable game. Robbie Avila does, though, have 10 turnovers. He also had a bad shot block that led to an easy and one on the other end for the Duke. So a bad game for Robbie Avila. I think it's funny that during the senior night presentation, which is why we're a little delayed here, while lauding all the seniors and talking about how great Gibson Jimerson was tonight, Josh Schertz, with a mic in his hand in front of the entire crowd at Shavitz Arena, takes a shot at Robbie and says, we got to see a great game from Gibson. We also got to see NCAA records and turnovers from Robbie Avila. So I just love that mindset from Schertz, that he's still joking around and messing around despite it being such an insanely close game. Really, really was a special night here in Shavitz. Glad we got to see it. And glad the Billikens now have a strong road through the A10 tournament, because when you look at everything that happened here, you seal the 5th seed in the A10 tournament. You're now looking at either Davidson or Richmond coming up here in the next round. Then Loyola Chicago, who did seal the 4th seed. That will be the second game if they're able to beat Davidson or Richmond. By the way, if you're wondering what happened with Davidson and Richmond earlier in this season, they beat both the Davidson and Richmond this year, but both of them were extremely close games. The Davidson win was at Davidson, a 57-56 win. Obviously, they needed some heroics from Robbie Avila at the end of that game. And then the Richmond game was an earlier season, 63-59 win. That was a big win for them. They also had to claw back from a bad deficit to that one to win that one. So not the easiest stretch, but I would say the best stretch that they could have had in front of them after what they kind of set themselves up with over the last week or two.
Yeah, and I agree. And that game's going to be at 1 o'clock on Thursday afternoon, 1 o'clock Central Time against Davidson or Richmond. It looks like we lost Rock here, but I'll just keep rolling and tell you why I just really like this path for a few reasons. I just think if you're going to win 4 games in 4 days, I think it's preferable to face teams that play with a slow tempo because it helps you conserve energy. Like, the Billikens have played really well against teams that play with a slow tempo, including Duquesne tonight. A SLU has gone 4-1 against the 5 teams that play with the slowest tempo in the A10. The only loss was to George Mason in OT. And with the 5 seed, like we said, you play your first game against the winner of Richmond and Davidson. Richmond plays with the slowest tempo in the A10. They rank 345th in tempo out of 364 teams in D1. Davidson, they're 274th in the country in tempo. That's the 5th slowest in the A10. So, like, relatively speaking, that shouldn't be that exhausting of a game. And then if you win that, you're probably going to be a pick'em or maybe even a small favorite against Loyola. The Billikens are 11 spots higher in KenPom than the Ramblers. So I think that this puts you on the best path to get to the semifinals. I mean, at that point, you're probably up against VCU.
Yeah.
But when you're there, you just take your shot. You've already beaten them once, so you know you can do it. I just, as really the day shook out and you got to see what the path would be if they were going to be the 5 or the 6, I really think being the 5 is advantageous. Playing that first game against a slow-paced team, where if they would have been the 6, it would have been against a UMass or LaSalle who plays really fast. So I think this is really, if you can't get the double bye, 5 is very, very ideal. Obviously, a lot to clean up with the turnovers, but just a very fun win and a ton of momentum for next week. I'm going to give Rock a few more seconds here. I know we may be on a bit of a delay. Yeah, if you guys got comments, throw them in the YouTube chat. Got a comment here from Micah Patriots at Domesticated Gamblers. 4 players with 40-plus minutes tonight. We need a bench next year. We definitely got good contributions from McCautry tonight. He was really outstanding in his time on the floor. He ends with 8 points on 4 or 5 shooting, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Didn't get much from the rest of the bench. But this team, like I said, they put themselves in a position now. If you're going to play 4 games in 4 days, I think you've put yourself in the best position as possible. A couple other key points from the game tonight. SLU has playing a Duquesne team tonight that is the worst 3-point defense in the A10, and SLU leads the A10 with 9.8 made threes per game, and 40% of their points for the Billikens this season come from 3. That's the 14th highest rate in the country. So as I was looking at keys to the game tonight, I was looking to see if SLU could make at least 10 threes and make their season average, and could they have 40% of their points come from threes? Well, after the extra 5 minutes in overtime, the Billikens finish with 12 3-pointers, and they finish with exactly 40% of their points coming from 3-point range. So, the Billikens right on pace with there. Another key point in this game was the turnovers. So SLU has the worst turnover margin in the A10, and SLU has turned the ball over on over 19% of its possessions in conference play, which is a higher rate than any team in the A10 outside of George Mason. The Dukes, they force turnovers at a higher mark than any team in the league. So, Rock, I hope you can hear me, but SLU with 18 turnovers tonight, they turned it over on 25% of their possessions. They lost the points off turnovers 26-15, but still win the game. And it's because of Jimerson and Swope.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a point where I think fans are getting a little bit tired of us doing this thing where it's like, well, when you add up all these factors, it tells you they could be even closer in a lot of these games, but that just isn't materializing at this point. And my big thing, as I'm watching this game today, it has to be, Schertz's big thing has been this team needs to be better in January than they were in November, and better in February than they were in January, so on and so forth. Is this team that much better right now in March than they were in November? I think they've matured in some ways. They've gotten more physical. They've gotten tougher. The fact that they've now eked out 7 or 8 wins that they could have lost. They've hit clutch shots with Gibson and Isaiah. Yeah, I think they've grown, but I don't know if they've necessarily gotten better as a team over the last couple of months, and that's a little bit disappointing. And Gussie Bush's cowboy hat, not having a deep bench, is going to be the demise of this team come tournament time. I agree with Gussie Bush's cowboy hat because take all those things, a lot of turnovers, a lot of 3-point shooting. Let's say you get crazy games where you hit a lot of 3-pointers and you don't turn the ball over a lot. It's just hard for me to imagine this team winning consecutive games multiple days in a row, with how just short the bench is and with how you have multiple players playing 40 minutes a game. I don't know how that works out in a conference tournament setup.
Yeah, what do you think about the path? Because I know I was giving my thoughts on the path of how it's kind of ideal when you were starting to cut out. But being able to start with one of those slower paced teams and then getting Loyola after that, what do you think about the path for the A10 tournament? All right, we're going to keep rolling for a few more minutes here as we got the Blues post-game show coming up too. Blues drop this one in overtime, so they do get a point tonight in Los Angeles against the Kings. Another interesting stat from tonight that really stood out to me. So I saw in the Duquesne game notes today that heading into tonight, Duquesne had won 38 straight games when being the first team to reach 70 points in a game. Who got to 71st tonight? It was Duquesne. So that streak is now over. They had won 38 straight when getting to 70 points first. That streak now over. Another big key for the Billikens here this season is Rock's trying to come back and join us. So how about and Rock, hope you can hear me. We talked all year about the 2-point shooting for the Billikens and how big that has been for them. SLU shooting 59% from 2-point range. That's 5th in the country this season. Duquesne, they have a top 50 defense in the country defending 2-point shots. So that was a big factor tonight for me, I was like, can SLU get to 60% from 2-point range if their season average is 59%? So for the game tonight, the Billikens from 2-point range go 23 of 32. That is 72% from 2-point range. So just a fantastic, efficient offensive performance from the Billikens. Their season from the field overall, 47% from the field. That's the best mark in the A10. The Billikens tonight shoot 59% from the field. So hopefully we see a lot more of that next week in DC. And from 3-point range tonight, 44% from three, beating their season average of 35%. So Rock, if you can hear me, I was just talking about the 2-point percentage success for SLU tonight.
Yeah, I love the efficiency, and that's been the case the entire season. They don't take a lot of twos. Everyone says when you look at the efficiency marker, why don't they take more twos? But the fact of the matter is they finish twos at such a high rate because they get the best twos, because of the way they space things out, because of their 3-point shooting and those kind of things. I apologize for the internet today, looking a little bit like Robbie Avila is passing right now from Chaffetz, the internet tonight. But yeah, it was a crazy game. The really something I want to point out is this is the last game that Gibson played at Chaffetz. And it's also maybe the most unique game we've ever seen Gibson play at Chaffetz. He got an and one off a mid-range jumper. Never see that. He put in his own layup rebound off a tip while he was still in the air from the original layup. Never seen that. Made some defensive plays we've never seen. Just for a guy who's playing his last game and for a guy who feels like we've seen everything from him that we possibly could see in the last 6 years, to watch him to set a new season high or a new game high for his career 2 different times in the last couple of weeks, to see him hit 33 different times, and to see him do all this different stuff that we never saw from him earlier in his career, it was just a special way to finish out the career of Gibson Jimerson at Chaffetz Arena.
Tell me about the atmosphere there tonight, Rock, because just watching it on TV, I mean, it sounded bananas there late in regulation and overtime especially. All right, well, we'll keep rolling just a little bit more. Just again, for Billikens, the comeback victories this season, miracle comeback wins over UMass, Davidson, and now Duquesne. Another late comeback in a win over Richmond. So just this team has been super clutch this season. I mean, this could have turned into a disaster of a season. And instead, like they've now finished the year at 18 and 13 overall. And then also 11-7 in the A10, 14-3 at home. This could have gone a much worse way. Rock, can you hear us at all? I don't think we're going to get there. I don't think we're going to get there tonight. I think it was just so crazy at Chaffetz tonight that the Wi-Fi went bananas too. I don't think the Wi-Fi can handle it tonight. Do you want me to wrap, Rock? I think we're going to wrap. Crazy game tonight at Chaffetz Arena. Again, the Billikens win it 90-88 in overtime. They're the 5 seed in the Atlantic 10 tournament. They will play the winner of Davidson and Richmond at 1:00 on Thursday. If they win that game, they will advance to play the 4 seed Loyola, and you're probably looking at VCU in the semifinals. Hopefully they get knocked off in their quarterfinal. Rock, can you hear me? Is there anything else you want to add? We'll wrap it up. All right, we'll wrap it up. Hey, stay tuned, guys. The Blues Hub Live is coming up here in just a few minutes as we wrap up.
I cannot hear you, Eric. I'm able to go off my phone a little bit, so I'll just tell everybody it was a great game for the Billikens. Stay tuned to the Billikens Hub post games. We will be doing post games during the A10 tournament, no matter how many games it is. I'll be from my house, so you'll at least be able to hear me, and hopefully we'll be getting Bob Ramsey on live from Washington, D.C. throughout those post games. Thank you very much for joining us today, Eric, and you go ahead and finish it up since you got the internet connection that I do not have.
We'll go ahead and do that, guys. Stay tuned for Blues Hub postgame live. Blues lose in overtime to the Kings 2-1. Billikens win this one 90-88, also in overtime over Duquesne. Thanks for joining us, guys, and go Bills.